Canadian study gives more evidence cancer is a lifestyle disease largely caused by food. So this is an article that one of you guys sent me. And I'm going to go over this just to give my initial thoughts. If you want to send me articles for me to and get my first impressions of, feel free to send it to me whenever. This is only going to be available for patrons and members. Obviously, I'm not gonna script anything. I'm just gonna go through my initial thoughts, and this is my first time seeing this. So let's see what this article has to offer us. Okay, so cancer is a terrible, unwanted illness that affects far too many of the world's population today. One of the scariest things about this deadly foe, however, is that doctors today attest to having little idea what causes cancer. It's not that doctors don't know what causes cancer. It's just that it's largely unpredictable. Cancer is caused by mutations, and if it strikes a core gene, like a proto-oncogene, a tumor suppressor, it can then go on like a downward positive feedback spiral, which can mutate a bunch of other genes, and the mutations aggregate up, and then eventually the cell becomes cancerous. That is what causes cancer. Mutations cause cancer. What we don't really have a grasp on is the rate of mutation. They're largely unpredictable. You can't avoid mutations since they happen through basically everything, such as just DNA replication, being exposed to the sun, being exposed to any other random radiation, and they just happen naturally. You can't stop them from happening. And where that mutation strikes is entirely by chance as well. So the rate of mutation is chance, and then you have the location where the mutation strikes is also chance, and the gene that strikes is very important on deciding whether or not a cell becomes cancerous, and that is something you can't entirely control. Of course, you can reduce your chances of getting mutations, you can reduce your chances of cancer specifically, but it's not 100% a reduction, and just because you can reduce your chances doesn't mean that's not a roll of the dice. Overall, it's still going to be chance. And of course, I'm not saying that you should just give up and whatnot. There's plenty of things you can do to reduce your chances of cancer, such as not smoking. You can just not be obese, eat healthy, for example. Obesity is one of those that definitely not just increases your chances of cancer, but also increases your chances of many other diseases as well. So we assume that sunlight is the culprit, but also medications and sunscreens. There's lots of conspiracy theorists who would say this, how sunlight is not actually, it's not actually something that is that bad for you because it's, quote, natural. They like to appeal to nature a lot, but rather the artificial things you take, such as medications or sunscreens that prevent you from being exposed to the UV radiation, are actually the culprit for your cancer. So this actually brings me back to a video I actually did before, where there was an alternative medicine proponent who was saying how sunscreen was actually the thing that gave you cancer, not sunlight, which is kind of absurd to think about. Like it must be kind of a mental stress thinking that, oh my God, everything is against me, where these people are selling me products that literally give me cancer while claiming that the thing it protects you against is the thing that gives you cancer. How do you live like that? I don't know. But yeah, there's definitely I know sunscreen is composed of many different chemicals. I don't actually know what they are, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of them actually would play a role in increasing your chance of cancer. But I'm sure that whatever it is, it's definitely less than whatever sunlight would actually give you. We know that sunlight actually can cause cancer, increase your chances of cancer. From the UV radiation. The UV radiation creates pyrimidine dimers, such as thymine dimers, which basically just tie two thymines or cysteines together, and that causes them to be disabled and are unable to be read, and that is essentially a mutation. Medications is going to depend on what medications you take. Of course, a lot of them have side effects that could possibly increase your chances of cancer. It's too hard to say without actually knowing, going into specifics. We've accused certain job-specific fumes and lifestyle choices, but a recent Canadian study sheds more light on the subject, suggesting that cancer actually is a lifestyle disease that is hugely influenced by the foods we eat. Okay. Yeah, the foods you eat definitely can contribute, but let's see what this says. Current cancer facts. However, shockingly, it's believed that the worldwide cancer rates is only going to rise in future years. Some have predicted that by 2020, 1 of every 2 women and 1 of every 3 men will be diagnosed at some point in their lives with some form of cancer. I think this is reversed. It should be 1 in every 2 men and 1 in every 3 women. It's pretty likely that you are going to get cancer at some point in your life, specifically more likely when you're older. But that's kind of a scary thought. But just because you're diagnosed with cancer doesn't mean you're going to die from it. It could just be like you could just catch it really early, and then if you do, then you could just treat it, and then that's you got cancer, but it wasn't deadly at all. Stuff like that. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. Cancer is so incredibly common already that it's more likely for someone to contract cancer than to get married or have a baby. I don't know the statistics for that, so I can't say. These types of statistics are insane, especially considering the millions of dollars worth of research being poured into science and study meant to help combat cancer, reduce the disease in the future. Cancer is one of those that you really need to pour a lot of money into because it's very different than a lot of the other diseases or illnesses that we've encountered. Things like, for example, STDs. Before, if you got certain types of STDs, like syphilis, for example, you would be, put into an iron lung for the rest of your life. And that kind of sucks. But now you just take 2 pills and you're good. That's one of those diseases that, although, like certain ones are like, okay, we've solved the problem. Now we move on to more other important ones that need to be addressed. Cancer is one of those that sort of will always dance around you. No matter what treatments you give it, there's always some way to fight back, which is why I always say cancer seems like they have a mind, because you give it whatever, they eventually adapt and they fight back. If you give it, if you enhance your immune system to fight it, they will find some way to battle those immune cells. If you give it a drug that combats angiogenesis, or to prevent metastasis, they're always going to find some way to fight back, either by being desensitized to the drug you give it, or by utilizing another mechanism that would allow them to achieve the same goal. And that's kind of scary. But of course, that doesn't mean we should give up. We should always develop better and treatments that give like less side effects, that are cheaper, for example. And maybe one of these days we will find a cure. Who knows? I mean, I'm hopeful, but also doubtful as well, that will ever happen. It's always going to be a combination of treatments. And since cancer is like, it's over 100 different types of diseases, it's not really right to say, we found a cure for cancer. Where am I? As I was saying, we should be pouring more money into cancer research, because eventually we're going to make the treatments much better. And I hope that it eventually will be a disease of the past, that people won't have to worry about it as much in the future. But that'll depend on how what research takes us to. To make matters even worse, it appears that the cancer industrial complex is negligent at warning patients that chemotherapy, a treatment often used to fight and kill cancer, is currently understood to make some cancers spread and worsen. That's not really the case. It's not going to make cancer spread or worsen most of the time. I mean, of course, if something did do that, then the doctor's not going to put you on it. But there are some cases in which treatment could make cancers worsen and make them more deadly. For example, this is the case for example, if you had like a tumor that has spread to other organs or to other tissues, and they formed, secondary tumors, tumors that aren't part of the main pack. Then you cut out one of those tumors, like the primary one, for example, it could actually have a signal that could cause the other tumors to be more aggressive. This is through, I forgot, but there was a drug that was basically developed from this mechanism, but essentially the tumors were keeping each other in check. There was an anti-angiogenic molecule that was being released from these tumors that were preventing the other tumors from spreading. And so when you did surgery and you cut out one of these tumors, what doctors found was that basically the other tumors became more aggressive. That later, I think it was angiostatin or something that was developed from this one. I can't exactly remember. But we later identified what that molecule was and was able to utilize it for treatment, blah, blah, blah. But essentially that's an example in which treatment could actually make cancer worse. Chemotherapy, I don't believe, really does that. Depends on what type of drug you actually take, since chemotherapy is largely ones that prevent excess cellular growth. Okay. The government and other regulatory agencies have been working hard to access safe, natural, and otherwise alternative cancer treatments since chemotherapy has revealed itself to be such a deadly treatment. I mean, like, chemotherapy is going to be, the go-to normally. But of course, there's plenty of other innovative methods, like, for example, artificial sugars and whatnot that are used to treat cancer. There's so many different ways, and it depends on what kind of types of cancers you have, which is, why I say cancer is becoming more and more personalized over the years, because your treatment is going to be different than somebody else who has the same exact disease. Even different parts, even different cells of the same tumor is going to have different genetics and is going to respond differently to treatment. And yeah, I mean, if we can get other treatments that are safer and have less side effects compared to chemotherapy, then I'm all for that, But all the while, doctors and mainstream media are giving off the impression that cancer's root cause is utter and total mystery. It's not a mystery, it's just unpredictable. Okay. Even though many doctors strongly attest to the elusiveness of cancer, claiming not to understand it or its cause, the reality is that a person could significantly reduce their risk of getting cancer if they simply make a few lifestyle changes. According to a study that was published in Canada, the total proportion of cancer rates attributed directly to general lifestyle and environmental factors is exceptionally high. Per the study, 41% of cancer rates are due to lifestyle decisions or the environment, meaning that 41% of cancer cases could possibly be eliminated. I mean, I don't doubt that at all. I do think a large proportion of our cancer cases could be attributed to lifestyle changes. But again, it doesn't mean it's guaranteed. That's a different selling point. So if you're going to sell the fact that, just by eating healthy, for example, is going to make it so that you're going to be cancer free, then that's basically just lying. We estimated summary population attributable risk estimates for 24 risk factors: smoking, both passive and active, overweight and obesity, inadequate physical activity, diet, inadequate fruit and vegetable consumption, inadequate fiber intake, excess red and processed meat consumption, salt consumption, inadequate calcium and vitamin D intake, alcohol, hormones, oral contraceptives and hormonal therapy, infections, Epstein-Barr virus, hepatitis B and C viruses, human papillomavirus, H. pylori, air pollution, natural and artificial ultraviolet radiation, radon and water disinfection byproducts, by combining population attributed risk factors for each of the 24 factors that have been previously estimated. Okay. This remarkably detailed list outlines many personal choices human beings knowingly take, understanding that they increase one's risk of cancer, as well as pointing out foods that directly increase one's risk of getting cancer. Add in exercise and environmental factors, you can learn that a great deal of cancer-causing things are entirely avoidable. I mean, lots of things that would increase your chance of cancer can be avoided just by lifestyle. You can not smoke, for example. You can eat healthy so that you're not obese. Obesity contributes to many diseases, not just cancer. So that's fine. I mean, if you're going to promote healthy lifestyle, that's fine, but don't make it seem that as if, if you do everything correctly, you're going to entirely avoid cancer. That's just not true. The study goes on to say that overall we estimated that 40.8% of incident cancer cases were attributable to exposure to the 24 factors included in the analysis. Tobacco smoking was responsible for the greatest cancer burden. Yeah, I have no doubt about that. Definitely tobacco is the highest. Accounting for an estimated 15.7% of all incident cancer cases, followed by physical inactivity and excess body weight, which were responsible for an estimated 7.2 and 7.3% of incident cancer cases, respectively. All other exposure of interest were estimated to be responsible for less than 4% of incident cancer cases each. Okay, that's fine. I'm guessing the study that they're referencing is is a proper research study when it comes to this. I would have to see the study itself to really make a proper conclusion about it. Speaking of conclusion, we often hear that cancer is unpredictable and comes out of nowhere. While this is still sometimes the case, the fact that the matter remains is a lot of cancers can be prevented. But that's majorly up to an individual's lifestyle choices and environment. We have more control over your health than you might know. What can you do to protect you from family cancer from this point on? Okay. Yeah. The fact that this entire website is called healthyholisticliving.com makes me already doubtful of everything, but it's fine. I just don't want to overly criticize it since it's somewhat based in truth. So yeah, thanks for sending me this, and hope you enjoyed.